Hello, pondering people. I am here at Grand Central Coffee House waiting for the show to begin. It is 7:35, which means sign up is open and show is going to start pretty soon actually. It starts at 8 o'clock. This is a Grand Central stage where people go up and tell stories about their life.
So that could be a lot of things. I mean, there's people here that want to talk about body modifications, tattoos and stuff, or piercings, or other types of body modifications. Literally anything. But I also want to open the floor to people who don't want to talk about things like that. You just want to talk about change in general. We can do that too.
And if any of you remember the big news of summer 2009, it was the flu, right? The H1N1 virus, which was everywhere. And it just so happened that the summer camp I was working at in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, became the epicenter of an outbreak of the H1N1 virus. And the kids were dropping like flies, not in death, it wasn't that dramatic, but they were getting the flu in large numbers. The teaching staff was getting the flu in large numbers, and I was a teaching assistant. And I was one of the last people standing who was uninfected by this flu. And, so I went from being a teaching assistant to being kind of the monitor of sick bay. And I would, hang out there with the kids and play them things on the violin and sing songs to them as they coughed and hacked into their little masks they were wearing. It was an unpleasant sort of place. And so the officer says to me, "Where do you live, son?" And I say, "I live in Chicago," because I did. And he's like, "Why is your license West Virginia?" And I said, "Because that's the last place I got a license." "Why are you driving a car with a West Virginia license plate?" "Because it's my parents' car. They live here." "Well, what are you doing here?" "Oh, well, I'm not working right now because I was working, but the camp got shut down for swine flu, so now I'm driving my coworkers around West Virginia." "So the camp's in Chicago?" "No, the camp's in Pennsylvania." "So you're working in Pennsylvania?" "Yeah, I'm working in Pennsylvania in the summer, but I live in Chicago." "And you're driving a West Virginia car?" "Yeah." Didn't sound good to the guy, even though it was all the truth. And so finally he glares at me and he looks at me with this intense expression and he says, "I bet those coworkers of yours are really scared right now, because I could do anything to you, What do you say to something like that? All I could think of was, "I guess so." So that's what I said. And so the officer said, "Get back in the car, don't speed." And I drove off and got no ticket. And to this day, I've wondered if maybe I got no ticket because I was unable to produce my registration. So y'all, if you want to take a real risk, next time the cop pulls you over for speeding, pretend like you can't find your registration. You may get off without a ticket. Woo! Thank y'all.
I'm going to tell you a story about how my body has modified my life. And so, just to kind of give you a little bit of background history, I was living in Virginia. My husband is in the military, and so we were living in Virginia, and I was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. And so my body decided to make me super skinny and make me probably about the size of 75 pounds within 2 months time frame, and the doctors were pretty concerned that I was either bulimic or that I had anorexia. And so during this process, they put me on tons of medication, and I went from 75 pounds to almost 130 pounds within a month. And your hormones and your body just goes completely wacky, and it decides that it doesn't really like it. And so while we're doing this MRI, he says to me, "Hold on one moment," in his broken English, and he goes and gets the radiologist. And the radiologist comes in, and they both grab my hand and pull me out of the MRI machine, and they sit there and they say, "We don't know how to tell you, but you have a bomb in your head." I'm like, "What is a bomb in my head?" And so they're trying to find the word, and they're like, okay, in English, and they're looking it up on their translation device. And they're like, you have an aneurysm in your head. It's a bomb in your head. And I'm like, okay. Well, I'm here for incidental finding, I guess, and I don't really have anybody with me, so I guess I have to go back to the base where my doctor is and kind of tell him what's going on. So if you can write this down for me, that'd be phenomenal. And I'm going to have my brain surgery. And while I was preparing for that brain surgery, I found a lump in my breast. And so, sorry, I might get a little emotional. So I decided at that point I was going to go ahead and take care of my brain surgery. And if I didn't come out like a vegetable, or I wasn't blind or not dead, then I could probably go ahead and handle what was coming next. So then it was like, okay, time to get busy and handle what's coming next, which is breast cancer. My mom had breast cancer, same boob, same kind of breast cancer, and Angelina Jolie decided to have a double mastectomy right at the time that I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was really hard because she did preemptive, whereas mine was like, it's already there, kind of got to deal with it. So everybody's like, oh yeah, you're totally like Angelina Jolie, right? You're going to do it like Angelina Jolie. And I'm like, I'm just trying to cope with my life right now. I just had brain surgery and now it's time for breast cancer. So the modification I got there was obviously they had to pull my face down, cut a keyhole in my head. I had the whole halo thing on and, tilt your head back, and you've got lots of holes in your head now, and I've got about 17, 18 screws. So when they go loose, I kind of lose my marbles a little. Sorry. It's a nice joke, though. I can blame it on it. Or if I forget things, I can be like, oh, it's brain surgery. But so here I am, and I'm facing cancer, and I'm like, okay, cool. What's my options? So I decided to do the double mastectomy, and they remove everything. But what you don't really understand about the removal of the breast is they actually take the mammary glands, but they also take the tissue. So basically, when they remove all that, you kind of look really super concaved in the chest. And so while you're healing up, you try to be as normal as you possibly can. And so I was like, I hate this. I've already been through brain surgery. Now I have to recover for a whole year. This is ridiculous. I want to go out and be around people, so I just put on a hoodie and kind of, I call it my homeless gear. And just kind of exist, but not really exist for people to actually pay attention to me. And the biggest thing that happened, and this was the biggest reason why I ended up choosing to do what I did, was I had people who would come up to me regularly. People I didn't even know. And they would grab my belly. Now, I'm going to show you my belly. This is my belly. There's not a lot of it there. But when you're concaved, like this, you end up looking like this. Okay? So people would come up to me and they'd grab my belly and they go, oh, how far along are you? Crash. Big time crash, right? You have to sit there and go, oh, crap, how am I going to handle this one? So you got really good at some of the answers, but the first time it happened, it was probably like maybe 2 weeks after my original, carve it out with a melon baller surgery. And the lady was mortified because I was like, yeah, I just had breast cancer surgery. I'm not pregnant. That's why my chest looks like it does. And she's like, oh my God. And I was more concerned at that point for her and the way that she was feeling and saying something like that than actually what I was feeling. But when I went home that night, I cried and I was distraught. So I'm like, is this what it's going to be like if I don't get boobs? So I had to decide, am I going to choose to go ahead and get, breast reconstruction surgery? hell yes. I'm tired of people grabbing my belly and going how far along I am. So I decided to do it. And when I decided to do it, I decided I was going to go as big as humanly possible because I didn't want anybody to grab my belly anymore and ask me how far along I am. Well, in that process, and because I was such a small chest to begin with, I had no skin. So we had to do a lot of pumping up things, and it took almost 2 years, and I had to go through hyperbaric chamber, and I had to go through all this healing process and resex and sex and resex. I went through 2 years solid of surgeries after the original year surgery of brain surgery. But in that process, I was pretty much told that I was not able to have enough skin in order to create a nipple. And so my last modification that my body made me get is my most amazing detachable nipples.
Yes.
Woo! And so I always think of that song, Detachable Penis. And so if anybody would like to see my amazing nipples, you can peel them, and they are like silicone, and they're super cool, and then they just stick. And we can have fun whenever you want. And that's the end of my story.
All right, so we have one last storyteller tonight. She's a dear friend of mine, and I'd like to introduce you to her now. Put your hands together for Jazz.
I am going to talk about a specific set of piercings that I got on my 18th birthday. This is so much weirder to say on the stage. Okay. I love people who modify themselves in any sort of way because, it's your chance to just be who you really are. It's like you're the writer of your own story, and your body is your story. So a long time ago when storytelling was held at Long Gnome, we talked about tattoos, and the first ever tattoo I got was one that I did when I was 16 in my bathroom floor. I got a needle and ink, and I tattooed the word mine on my body. And it was kind of just like connecting with myself and realizing that this is my home, and this is always going to be mine, and I want to own it, and I want to love it, and I don't want anyone to change me, or I don't want to have anyone affect me because of the way they think about my home.